there's a phrase I'm playing with around thinking about actually redefining, but also relocating risk and return. So again, in economics of separation, we're focused on, as an investor, I'm focused on this, like think about a network map, right? There's nodes and there's lines between the nodes. And the economics of separation is interested only in the node. It's interested in, investors are interested in investing in the single best enterprise that they can and ensuring it crushes the competition so they can extract financial value, right? Philanthropists find themselves sometimes doing the same because they have to bet on the best intervention and ensure it scores well on expected metrics. They're interested in the node. In the economics of relationship, we're interested in the lines between the nodes. We're interested in the strength of ties in our communities. And so we're less interested in a single node than we are in the wealth and well-being among them. And so now, if you keep that network map in mind, then the question of relocating risk and relocating return is something to explore. So let's go back to risk. So in finance, risk means generally, right, the degree of uncertainty or potential financial loss to the investor that's inherent in an investment decision. And traditionally, as investment risks rise, investors expect higher returns. So they're already trying to transmute risk into return. And there's a number of problems with that. The first problem is that risk, financial risk, is centered exclusively on the investor and not on the investee, never on the borrower, only on the lender. Also, only some risks are counted, right? So for example, we rarely count long-term climate risk. We don't count the risk of not investing in an individual or a neighborhood or a community. We don't count risk of bias in the assessment of risk. So if we were to rethink risk, we would say, what would it be like to relocate risk throughout the whole system of relationships, not just the investor, but the risk to the borrower or the recipient of an equity capital and the risk to the community. So that's one reframing of risk. On return, we're in the same situation, right? Generally, the return in terms of financial return is the money made or lost of an investment over time, and the return is centered on the investor, not the investee, right? And so only some returns are counted. So the social return on improved healthcare education isn't counted. The environmental return of sequestering carbon isn't counted. We talk about it. In fact, we talk about being triple bottom line, right? People, planet, and profit. But whenever we're measuring return, we separate the impact return from the financial return as if they're unrelated, and different people measure it and different people are accountable for it. And so what we want to do is take a look at, again, we're trying to continuously address this more intersectional or systemic thinking, this integrated thinking. That would have us look at the interplay between the two. And so if in conventional finance, investors seek to transmute risk and return, in solidarity finance, we want to redefine or relocate risk and return and transmute that into impact and power. So I have a little visual if you would like to see it.
Absolutely, share away.
Okay, so what I'm going to show you is it is not a quantitative measurement tool. It's a conceptual tool, and we call it the impact equalizer. And, we got to go old school here for a minute and bring back the memory of those stereo equalizers, right? Where we used to like bump up the treble and the bass, right? So imagine this is a stereo equalizer with 0 is neutral. And I have the opportunity to bump up the treble on financial return, and then our ESG, our environmental and social and governance. And I'm always going to look at the interplay between the two. And I just have it now at 100%, but you could have financial at like 2x or 5x. You'd obviously have to define your parameters for each of these. But if I was to do something like map a fossil fuel investment, so this is an attempt, again, conceptual, to show both risk and return. The risk is the amplitude and the return is the dot, right? So if I'm saying like right now, for better or for worse, fossil fuel investments are outperforming in the marketplace. So if I'm investing in Exxon, I'm getting whatever, the highest return at the moment. And maybe there's some risk that I would lose money depending on the timing of when I put my money in. So 0 0 is return of principal. Obviously, north of that is a multiple, and below that is a loss. But on the environmental, on the E, I'm doing pretty badly. And on the social and on the governance, I gave it a little bit less than totally negative in case somebody's doing some good CSR work, corporate social responsibility work, or maybe they added some women to their board on governance. But generally, you'd sort of look at a fossil fuel investment saying, wow, look at the trade-off I'm making for that financial return. On the other end of that extreme, let's say that I'm making a grant to a BIPOC-led community land trust that's doing urban gardening and growing sustainable food, right? So it's like a bullseye on environmental, social, and governance, but I'm getting negative 100% back on my money. I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. I am all for moving philanthropic money as aggressively as we can. I want to point out just the space between the fossil fuel investment and this, which is there's all kinds of territory to explore between the two. So I'll give you an example. So for the Boston Impact Initiative, where I work, we've given our own specificity to the ES and the G. So when we're talking about environment, we specifically might mean climate resilience. When we talk about social, we mean economic justice. We're trying to build wealth and power for communities of color. And when we talk about governance, we mean new majority power. And by new majority, we mean the fact that we're going to be a majority people of color governed, populated country by 2044 or so. And we're looking at building that power. And so when we invested in a worker-owned organic waste recycling cooperative, and we gave them $100,000 at 3%, so we might get 3% back on that. We could lose all the money, that's possible. But again, the return on impact is so high that we felt that that financial risk was worth taking. So again, it's just a conceptual idea, but the goal of it for me is to have us saying, what if I mapped every single one of my investment holdings? What if I could see how often I was hitting somewhere below 0 on my ES and G every time I was having a financial investment that was conventional, or even many ESG and impact investments that are not really getting us far enough above neutral. And so that invitation is saying, let's really push ourselves to think about the relationship between risk and return and the intersectionality across finance and impact.